Hello and welcome to Language Culture and Dr. Lou. And today in this video, I'd like to share some idiomatic expressions, some, sayings with really interesting origins to them. And I love idioms for one, because they don't translate, and for two, because these are expressions that must have changed changed meaning a lot of because each expression is not the sum of its parts. It doesn't mean what the words literally make it look like it would mean. Like to talk about somebody bought the farm, we're actually talking about they're deceased. And I'm not gonna get into the origins of that idiom because, well, they're kind of scary, kind of depressing. So I didn't want to start out on such a dark note anyway. But all the expressions I want to talk about today do have pretty interesting origins. And that's one cool thing about these expressions is that we do have an idea of where they come from, where a lot of proverbs and idioms are so old that their origins are unknown. So here we go with some that we do know. And for instance, there's the expression armed to the teeth, if you're armed to the teeth. And what, of course, we use that expression for is um, when we're very, very prepared for something. We're not necessarily talking about combat, but we're talking about we're really, really prepared. We're armed to the teeth for it. Whereas it does come from more like combat, I guess. And actually, it goes back to pirates from a long, long time ago. Now, picture a pirate who's got a gun in one hand and another gun in another hand and a sword and a sheath. And then just to have even more arms, even to have more weapons, he's got a knife right clenched between his teeth just to have another weapon on him, like the guy in the picture here. That's where the expression armed to the teeth comes from. That and so this is about someone having so many weapons on them that they gotta have, you know, a knife in their teeth because they have nowhere to put it left. Anyway, so that to me is interesting that we know that this comes from pirates and their guns and knives and swords and all of that. And we still use it, but we're not necessarily talking about attacking. But I suppose one could apply it in that context too. But I'm not big for having weapons or getting into fights or anything. So for me, it's just to be really prepared for something. So that to me is funny that uh, we have an expression that we still use to these day that comes from pirates and everything. And I wonder how many others we have like that. So how about moving on to an expression that's not about pirates? When we say barking up the wrong tree, you might know where this expression comes from if you are a hunter and if you've ever hunted using dogs to help hunt the animal. Um, and so it would be from if a dog is chasing after an animal while hunting it and he gets to a tree that the animal just ran up. Now, if the animal escapes, let's say to a nearby tree, jumping from branch to branch, get to a different tree, oftentimes that dog would still be there at the first tree, at the tree they saw the animal run up. And that's the dog barking up the wrong tree. That's where the expression comes from. And of course, today would just mean um, you're if someone is mistaken about the source, or rather about a solution. Like, if you're asking uh, someone for help with something that they have nothing to do with, or if you're accusing someone of something that they didn't do, you would be barking up the wrong tree. It's like that hunting dog there. And so that's where the expression comes from. It comes from, of course, dogs literally barking up the wrong tree, but it's from hunting. And so, what else do we have? I'm afraid we're going to go back to a scary sort of expression. And this one is scary. Well, the origins are kind of scary. The expression basket case. If we call someone a basket case or we describe them as a basket case, it's because they're so emotionally a mess. They're such a hot mess. They're such an emotional mess, or, they're so unstable and all over the place mentally, um, that they're useless. Like they can't really function and accomplish anything. So that's when we describe someone as a basket case, and that's pretty terrible, right? Already in and of itself. Um, like let's say you might become a basket case because of tragic events occurring. Let's say you just lost someone that you love, you could become a basket case. That is all very terrible enough. But even worse is where the expression comes from. This goes back to 1919, I think, which is just after World War One. And there were rumors going around that limbs of decapitated soldiers were coming back in baskets, were arriving in baskets. And these were just rumors, okay? I can't really confirm that scientifically or historically whether there were actually baskets of limbs going around, but I do know there was these widespread rumors and stories about, you know, we have soldiers losing limbs and will end more in battle, and then the limbs are coming back in baskets. Uh, Horrible, horrible, horrifying origins to it. And this, it's too bad I'm not doing a Halloween video today to do, you know, expressions with spooky and scary origins, because that would be a good one for that for a video like that, basket case, if you do know where it comes from. Eek. Anyway, so let's move on to something that might be a little less depressing. Oh, sorry, this one's also about soldiers at war, and it's pretty scary too. Sorry again. This one might have been better for a Halloween video. Um, so the expression is bite the bullet. So when you bite the bullet, we're talking about just going ahead and doing something that you really don't want to, but because you have to anyway. Like, following through with things, with your obligations, even if you really don't want to. That is an example of biting the bullet. And so the reason we use it for, something really unpleasant, really that we don't want to do at all, is maybe in part because of where the expression came from. Biting the bullet, this came from, we're talking about soldiers wounded, often on the battlefield, back in days before there was anesthesia, before we could, yeah, give someone anesthesia so they wouldn't feel anything. And but this soldier really needs some uh surgery or some other procedure done right now to save their lives, but it's going to be super painful. They would get a bullet in their mouths, like you see in this picture there, and would bite on it just to be able to cope with all the pain. So that is wow. That is pretty much just as scary of an image as the one I gave you for basket case earlier. So sorry about that. It's really ugly origins, but interesting again that we do know the origins of this expression at all, and it's not just some mystery, although, it would be nice to have more pleasant origins, but that's the real deal. Anyway, so this one is much less unpleasant as far as origins go of an expression. This is breaking the ice. This is about, well, we use it today to talk about, maybe an activity to break the ice, to make sure people who are just meeting each other are not feeling all awkward, you sort of it can often be a little getting to know you activity and all that. What you do if you break the ice with someone, you engage them in conversation or an activity or a shared activity, something like that. So everybody is all comfortable and getting along, right? And so where the expression came from was way, way back before we did a lot of our sipping on railroads and using super big highways and stuff like that. Boats, ships were often the way we would transport things, especially, of course, we didn't have airplanes back then either. And so shipping things around. And so sometimes when you were shipping something in a big boat or multiple big, big boats, let's say you're leaving from Newfoundland, Canada, and going to Greenland, or even further beyond that, out to Scandinavia or something. The ship often, when you're getting close to your destination, getting towards the destination country, there would be ice there, especially if you're up north, I suppose, or far close enough to the South Pole either. Um, And so what the country receiving the thing would do, what the port receiving them would do, would be send out these little icebreaker boats, like smaller boats, to break the ice up for them to help maintain a safe passage for the arriving ship to come to the new place. So that's where the expression break the ice comes from. It was literally about ice breaking boats that will literally mechanically break up all the ice so that the larger ship could get through just fine, unobstructed and all that. So that's yeah, a very nautical origin to this expression. And as you can imagine, this expression has been around for a very long time because people have been shipping things using boats for a very, very, very long time. And so this expression, to bury the hatchet, this one I kind of also like more because it's all about making peace. So when you bury the hatchet with somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean you're all going to be super best friends again or anything like that. Like everything is resolved. But what it does mean to bury the hatchet is to forgive and move on. Doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're forgetting and being best friends right now, but you're all moving on. So no, you're not holding on to grudges or keeping any animosity between you. You're just sort of burying the hatchet. And this comes from a time when, well, you had the Puritans having arrived in New England, when the colonies and British colonies to form the British colonies anyway, and they were warring and fighting with the so-called Indians, the Native Americans who were already living in North America when the Puritans got here. And so when they were warring with each other, sometimes they would come to an agreement where they wanted to have some peace talks. And that right there is where the burying the hatchet things come in. And it's not something the Puritans were doing, it was actually something the Native Americans were doing. They would literally bury their hatchets under the ground, as just sort of show, hey, I'm not bringing weapons to this discussion. Let's have a peaceful talk and all that. So bury the hatchet so that everybody can resolve issues and move on. And again, doesn't necessarily mean that now you're best friends or anything, but does mean you can all, you know, cope and literally move on. And it's for the good of everybody to just bury the hatchet sometimes, even if you would almost rather be attacking, attacking, attacking. That's not getting anybody anywhere. So bury the hatchet and move on. So these were Native American hatchets that we're talking about. And there you go. So another expression that has nothing to do with war. I love the origins of this expression. It's all about, well, to butter him up or to butter someone up. Um, this is, of course, to really compliment them. Um, yeah, to really give them lots of compliments and really maybe even impress them and all that. So that hopefully, they'll do right by you too. But where it comes from is an ancient religious practice from India where folks would have literal pats of butter and throw these pats of butter at the statues of the gods to appease their gods. So that was a way of appeasing the gods. So hopefully, the gods will be doing right by you too and be, you know, helping you out. But that was the idea was they would throw these pats of butter onto these statues. So literally the statues would be kind of buttered up, buttery. So turns out this expression comes from actual butter, and we're talking about in India, we have in ancient times, we had people literally throwing butter at statues of gods to appease the gods. And so this expression has changed meaning quite a bit because we no longer use pats of butter and throw them at anybody, but you give compliments and we hope to get something back in return often, right? At least to have them treat us a little more nicely. And so I do like that expression, and it's been around a very, very long time. And it's interesting to me that anyone would throw butter at the gods, but heck, people have been giving presents and offerings to all kinds of different gods in all different faiths for a very, very long time. So I guess the pats of butter, not too surprising to me. And so what else? Oh, cat got your tongue? This one is well, it's a funny expression. It's one we use when somebody has nothing to say. When we ask them a question and they can't even come up with an answer. They don't have anything to say about it. They don't have any reply. We might ask, "Hey, cat, got your tongue? Did the cat get your tongue?" And where does this expression come from? Um, pretty pretty dark places too. Anyway, and it's not as well as silly as some of these pictures make it look to be. Cats literally grabbing onto your tongues, which would be more difficult for them without opposable thumbs. But anyway, um, but this expression has two possible origins that people point to, and they're both pretty pretty grim. And the one goes back to the cat o' nine tails. You see the little picture of the whip near the top of the center of the screen, with all those, so-called nine tails. That's the cat o' nine tails, the very medieval looking torture device type of thing. But really, what that was, well, that cat o' nine tails whip was used for flogging in the English Navy. So flogging with a whip, yeah, pretty bad. And so that's grim enough as a possibility. And I could see why, a flogging might keep you speechless, might keep you not being able to talk. So I kind of get that one. And so I give that a strong possibility that that's where the expression comes from. But the other suggestion is probably even worse. Sorry, but it's even more upsetting, I bet. Because the other possibility is that it goes back to ancient Egypt. And yeah, it's even worse, I'm saying, than being flogged with a cat of nine tails, or at least thinking about a flogging like that. Um, and the reason is in ancient Egypt, uh, there was a practice, or at least that's where the expression comes from, is the idea that there was a practice of um, cutting out the tongues of blasphemers and liars, cutting out their tongues and then feeding said tongues to the cats. Yeah, I know. Sounds pretty bad. And that's why I had the one picture of just a cat with like little human tongue is poor paw there, like it was already cut off, because that one's a little more similar to what we're thinking of, but yuck, right? Um, and so sorry if that one creeped you out. So maybe you're better off just thinking about the flogging on an English Navy ship. Anyway, so there you go. And thank you so much for watching this video to learn all the origins, sometimes creepy origins of these expressions, but some of them were not so bad, at least. And so I'm going to be working on another video very soon, but please, in the meantime, do give this video a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, I'd really appreciate it. So please do. And I'm going to come back very soon with more weird words of the day, and then with some more expressions with interesting origins to them. And so until then, see you around next time. Bye bye.